Hello, everyone. Thank you so very much for being here. And today is a very special show. I get to interview my dear sweet friend, Mr. Mark Asquith. So, hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm a little
Cool.
hungry, actually. Yeah, I've
Why,
had a halloumi wrap for dinner, and I feel like I could eat another one.
why are you hungry? Well, okay, I have to explain everyone. He's over in the UK, so it's like the end of the day. It's almost like happy hour, and it's just 8 a.m. for me. So I haven't even had breakfast. So that's why he's hungry, and I'm kind of hungry too. But I don't have groceries in the house. But yeah, that's how this goes sometimes. So, so for everyone who's here, thank you so very much. Of course, if I'm coming to you live, I'm in your feed. You have no idea who I am. I am Phylecia Jones, budgetologist and solopreneur, money management expert, and you are watching Ask the Budgetologist. And I come to you live every morning, 7:45 a.m. Mountain Time, and I answer any questions you have about business budgeting and solo entrepreneurship, and give you tons of unsolicited financial advice. And this week, we're talking about feeding your budget, and of course, is through up-leveling your speaking career with podcasting. So, and I have the man and the legend here, Mr. Mark Asquith from Podcast Websites. I have been talking about them all week. So he's going to come here and talk about podcast websites, podcasting, and speaking. So are you ready for that, Mark?
Oh, of course I am.
All right, cool. So we don't have a lot of time. So when you are the CEO of a company, you just don't have a lot of time to play on live stream. So we're just going to get straight to it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Mark a little bit later. But Mark, one of the things that we've been talking about all of this week have been opportunities that you've gained from podcasting. So I know you started a podcast a few years ago, but I'm just curious, like, what have been some of the doors that have opened and opportunities that have fallen on you just from launching a podcast?
To be honest, completely honest with you, and you obviously you know this story probably better than most. Everything that I do now has come from having a podcast. If you kind of rewind back to 2014 when I started my show, I was the owner of a design and brand agency. It was good. I was enjoying it. We were growing. We were doing well. But I didn't realize. But I was about 2 years away from being bored of that. I didn't know that at the time. So I started this podcast. Actually, my first ever podcast was a show called Two Shots to the Head, which is a DC Comics show. Which you and I need to talk about. Teen Titans. Actually, I went to see the movie the other day. We need to talk about that.
The cartoon version, was it good?
Yeah, it was actually.
I love Teen
really
Titans. I love Teen Titans.
It was definitely written with adults in mind, put it that way.
Oh, that's even better. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really good. So I started this DC Comics show, and then I went away on holiday, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to start a business show and just kind of interview people and build my network out. It was great. I did that for 2 years, and in fact, 18 months. And then I took a break from it. But in that time, I'd built my network. I'd built a huge network of people, JLD, Johnny Dumas. I've built Chris Ducker, Pat Flynn, Chris Brogan, Guy Kawasaki. These are all people I can call friends and I've met numerous times. I'm now a business partner with John and Kieran. And, everything came from just having that podcast, really, truly everything. And then we had the idea of podcast websites. So truly, my entire focus now came from that podcast. Everything that I do now, all the products that we've got here at Podcast Websites, which Podcast Websites is just one of the products that we've got. The software company wouldn't exist without me starting my own podcast, and so everything that I do now is attributable to that one podcast. All the speaking gigs that I've done all over the world. Have all come from my podcast.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. So for all of you who are coming in a little bit late, just joining in, I'm interviewing the CEO and co-founder of Podcast Websites, my friend, Mark Asquith. And that's one of the cool benefits of having a podcast is that you get to interview your friends and you're just not name dropping. These people are actually your friends, which is kind of a cool thing too.
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of people do that. You see a lot of people name dropping, but legit, I've got a Star Wars date with Ducker. I'm a business partner with John, and I sang karaoke with him. Guy Kawasaki, we've spoken numerous times at events, and just Chris Brogan got drunk with him, and Fanzo, and these are all people that 10 years ago I was looking at thinking, damn, how are they doing that? And do you know what really dialed it in for me? Actually, I'll tell you what really dialed this in for me. Was how far a podcast had taken me. I spoke at CMA Live up in Scotland in May or June time. There's an event run by Chris Marr. I was one of the keynotes for that. It was great. It was a wonderful event. And Chris Brogan and Anne Handley were speaking, and Brian Fanzo and a few others. And I put a post on with, I think it was me and Brogan. Brogan was like taking the mick out of me, like, my hot dog story.
Yes.
And I opened up on the screen and I just went, "Hi, I'm Mark Asquith," and then flicked onto the next slide, and it was a hot dog. I was like, "That's a hot dog," and he was dying laughing. So we took this picture and I put it on Instagram, and one of the people that I used to work alongside a few years ago, who was one of the people that kind of scoffed a little bit when I started to podcast and really wouldn't help me locally.
Oh, haters! I love those.
Not necessarily a hater, more of a cynic.
A cynic.
A cynic. She actually put on my Instagram post with Brogan, like, "Holy crap, I can't believe you sat with Chris and Anne Handley. They're two of my all-time favorites. How did you do that?" And I was like, "Well, remember that thing that you ridiculed?" There you go.
You sure you don't call those people haters? I don't know.
Nah, she was just a cynic. I'll tell you a story about that one day.
Okay.
Yeah, she was just a cynic, bless her. But yeah, everything that I've done, legit, everything that I've done since, January 2015, when Kieran and I had the idea we had the idea in November 2014 and then didn't really do anything with it till January. So the last 3 years, plus everything has come from a podcast.
You've been kicking butt. So I just want to be like you when I grow up. So I love what you're doing. So if
I always tell people I want to be like you. So we're just like this. I don't know.
Nobody knows me. I'm nobody.
Are you kidding? You're like TEDx #1 now.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I have to talk about that a little bit later. So for all of you who are watching, okay, if you see my head going this way, I have my other monitor going. So I'm actually trying to not see Mark in a delay. So you guys know how I do things over here. Sometimes it's a hot, straight up mess in the morning. So just want to give a few little good mornings to Twyla. So Mark, just wanted to let you know, Twyla has a meeting set up with James to talk about podcast websites. So
James,
that's going to be fun.
Say hello. James.
Oh, Twyla, James is just going to come say hello to you.
He's gone. He's actually gone to record a podcast.
Okay. He'll be back soon, Twyla. Sorry.
Yeah, he runs a live podcast. But Twyla, that'll be good. James is a great guy. He's such a good guy. So you'll get along with him.
Yeah, I've been telling them that, podcast websites is so cool and that you get a bunch of cool English people so you can feel fancy in your business. Because you know how us Americans, we have a thing for the accent thing. So got to give a shout out to Heather. Heather was the one. I grabbed the last podcast websites t-shirt from Podcast Movement. So I have to mail it to Heather. She says this is the most exciting thing that's happened to her all week. So that means we need to get more fun things in Heather's life so that it's not just a t-shirt.
We definitely do. If I'm like the most exciting thing, we definitely need to talk about it. That's quite a disappointing week.
I know. So good morning, Annette. Annette is here. So hey, Annette. And so of course, you know Annette, Mark. And Adonia, good morning. Thank you. Hey, Elisa. So Elisa is launching her podcast. So quite a few people here have been launching their podcast. And I just want to actually go back to, for those of the people who are sitting here waiting, because the editing isn't right, their voice doesn't sound right, they don't have the right intro. What do you say to those people when it comes to podcasting?
I say that I've been there and done that. It's a crazy thing. The thing that I would say is that, you kind of need to just get in the pool to be able to learn how to swim. You're going to sink, you're going to splash around, you're going to get really wet, you're going to get water in your mouth, and you're going to hate it for a little bit. But then when you start to get a little bit of traction, you start moving forward and, you start becoming familiar with the thing, then you start to swim a lot better. So you've got to be in that pool. And what I'd say when it comes to podcasting is that you've really just got to just record something. Like, you don't need all the gear. Like, I've got this Rode podcaster microphone. It's not an expensive one. It's a USB one. I've got one at home that's a little bit different. We've got some others dotted around. We've got this Blue Yeti thing. We've got Snowball and ATR. Like, they are all under $100.
Yeah.
You don't need much. You can even get your phone out. And when James is going to record a podcast now, that's why he's not here. He's going to record an episode of his podcast out in the field. And he just records on an iPhone. Legit. No equipment, just into an iPhone, and it sounds great. So, don't need to worry about the editing. Don't need to worry about the tech. Just kind of wet your feet a little bit and get in there. You don't have to release it. It's fine. You've kind of got to get used to just hearing your own voice. Once you've done that, you'll start to think, what kind of stories can I tell? You'll develop this kind of story mindset. So don't overcomplicate things with the tech. That's why we exist at podcast websites. I just got so annoyed by people saying it's too hard, so many moving parts. So we brought that together. But even now, I still say, even if you don't use us, just get a phone out of your pocket and record something. just record something, even if you just do it on voice recorder and export it as an MP3, chuck it up to Dropbox and see what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And once you've got over that hurdle of just, honestly, we all do it, like hating our own voice. Once you've got over that, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll love it. You'll fall in love with it because it's not regulated. You can say what you want. And then the second that someone replies to an email that you send, or if you ask someone to do something, like the time I asked everyone to send Kieran an email with the word trombone in the subject line. Kieran gets emails with the word trombone. Well, but the second that you start to get that feedback, you're like, wow, it's like a drug. You kind of, you go deeper and deeper into it. So just start doing something. It's not complicated. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than turning on voice recorder.
Now, are you always surprised that people are listening, like when you start it and you start getting those first few replies and you're just surprised that, oh, wow, somebody's actually listening to this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, hugely. Yeah, big time. I think I don't know if I've released an episode where I mentioned this or whether I've just recorded it. I've got a feeling I've just recorded it for the end of next week on the 7-Minute Mentor. And I think one of the big telltales for me, one of the big kind of bonuses, in fact, I recorded 3 ways you can add your own personality into your content. And the last one was have a bit of a sign off, have a bit of a tagline. And mine is, the more you expect from yourself, the more you will excel, because I believe that the more you push yourself, the more you'll do. And I remember being at Social Media Marketing World with Annette, and I was recording my free coaching that I do. And I had my iPhone and an ATR plugged into it. And I said the first half of the catchphrase, and Annette finished it off. And like, that was the real kind of, wow, all right, that's nice. That's stuck. I'm very surprised that people actually understand that that's me saying that, or that it's a thing. And it just, so many people don't podcast because they don't believe that anyone wants to hear what they've got to say. And you will be so surprised. Like, you will be helping someone in ways that you can't even consider, that you can't conceive. That podcast that you put out might be the thing that just takes someone to a next level. And I actually, this is no lie, I got an email about 2 months ago from someone who listens to my podcast, and they sent me an email and basically said, listening to the show had got them through a massive depression and taken them away from being suicidal into building the new business. And I was like, holy crap.
I know, that's deep. Those are the ones that kind of hit you. I love it.
Big time. Woo. And I got that email. I was just startled and taken aback by it. And it's to feel that, you can just, I just sit in my home studio and just rant about stuff. And the fact that it's helping someone, you only need one of those and you'll not stop doing it.
Exactly. Because, you never know who's listening. And so one of the things Heather is saying, she feels like all the little pieces, the cover art, the marketing, the structure, are all the things that make her nervous as a nun in a cumber patch. I don't even know, a cucumber patch. but all of those things.
A nun and Benedict
Cumberbatch. A nun in a, well, I wish it was Benedict Cumberbatch, but no, it's a nun in a cucumber patch. I have no idea. She's from Minnesota. I don't know.
I quite like that. Kieran, I'm as nervous as a nun in a cucumber patch. Write that down.
But she gets stuck with all of the cover art, the marketing, the structure, all those little bitty things that get in the way when it comes to launching a podcast. And so with that, how does podcast websites help someone get over that hurdle of getting in the minutia of the things that, that you shouldn't really worry about?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And it's something that I'm conscious of. And it's almost like you line that question up, but I don't believe you have. I think it's something that so many people struggle with, that it comes up in every conversation that I have. So podcast websites, we're looking at reintroducing some design services for that. So we can help with that. That's going to come over the next few weeks into the next couple of months. We're just going through the finalization stages of that. But actually, I'm aware that that's a problem, in particular the marketing and the branding and, figuring out the brand structure side of things. And that's actually why we created our academy. We've got something called the Podcast Success Academy, which we've got a free tier for that. Anyone can join that. If you go to podcastsuccessacademy.com, yes, there's a paid tier. And when you're a Podcast Websites member, you get premium tier access. But there's so much stuff in there completely free. Like, we've made this a free tier membership. So you go and check out podcastsuccessacademy.com, Heather. Get signed up. We've got workshops about branding, about artwork. We've got downloads and tools and tutorials and community forums, all geared up for that very thing. Because I'm kind of the opinion that you shouldn't you shouldn't be penalized for not having marketing knowledge if you want to share content.
Oh, that's so true.
You shouldn't be penalized like just because you don't know how to build a website. Why should you not have a website or have a brand and become an audio influencer? You know, that it's annoying that so many people are like, yeah, it's easy. You plug in and you just publish your audio, and it is, that part of it is easy.
Yeah.
But what the podcasting industry kind of almost arrogantly sometimes thinks is that everyone else has got the same sort of knowledge as us geeks that are in it. And there's people just don't have that. You know, who the hell wants to know how to do branding if you've never, you know, you wouldn't need to do that. So yeah, podcastsuccessacademy.com. We put it together for that reason, just to help with that.
Oh, that's so cool. So Elisa is saying she's been told that she comes across way too professional and needs to show more personality. And this is a hardcore corporate trait. And she wants to know any suggestions on how to tone down the professional and be more approachable. I've tried to turn it off, but I just go into professional mode. So before you even answer this one, Mark. So Mark has a podcast called The 7-Minute Mentor. And I think it was last month's theme where, you know, you be more of yourself. And I know I've seen you talk about this, like your personality is going to be the thing that builds your brand. And so definitely I'll put everything in the links in the comment boxes so that you can go check out the 7-Minute Mentor. But it is so true that when you kind of relax a little bit and show a bit more your personality, you'll start attracting very interesting people to you.
Oh, you will, definitely. In fact, you know what? I'm going to give you I'll give you a bit of an insight if you want, because I'm just going to bring up my 7-Minute Mentor schedule, because I think that it's something that we talk about a lot. So we are actually talking about this, Alyssa, when we're considering people kind of stepping out of a professional box into a more personal box. And July was all about kind of injecting personality, and this month is kind of developing some structures and some strategies to do that. So I'm going to I'll tell you the content, just in case you don't get to listen. So the one that I recorded yesterday was episode 476, which is coming out next Tuesday. And it's called Developing a Formula for Adding Personality to Your Content. And that formula is kind of quite simple. You've got to develop these kind of anchor points, okay? Now I've got 3 of them. I've got 3 anchor points. Number 1 is my hat. I'm always wearing a hat, some kind of hat.
You have a haircut? Did you get a haircut?
Yeah, look at it. It's on the sides. It's really very, very
fresh
short.
and so clean. Look at you.
Yeah, it's all so pretty. But I always wear a hat. And now that's kind of, you might be thinking to yourself, how does that even apply? The good thing is that, 1, it's kind of something that people will always comment on. You know, I went to my mum's house last Sunday. She was like, "Oh, it's nice to see you without your hat." I was like, brand working, you know. And it's just one of those things that people lynch to. It's an icebreaker, but it also gives me a differentiator. Now, you might be thinking, well, how does that play to personality? It's the way that you stand out from other people. It's the way that you stand out from what other people are doing. What is that visual cue that you've got, that when people are scrolling up and down their feed, or they're looking at cover art in a podcast app, what is that one thing they see where they're like, oh, that looks like it's Mark? To me, it's probably the hat. The second thing that I do, and Phylecia will definitely give me some testimony on this one, is that when I want to drive a point home, this is one of my personality traits that I'm very formulaic about adding into my content, is that I developed a way of delivering the value. So what I'll do is, if I want you to listen, I'll leave a little bit of silence like that, and then normally I'll kind of drop an F-bomb or something.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. Probably a little bit too much. But I'll drive the point home. Now, that's not to say that you've got to drop the F-bomb every which way you turn. But what you've got to do is develop a formula for educating and developing a way of driving a point home. That will become your signature thing. Okay, so there are 2 things. And then the third thing that you've got to do, like I said, when Annette and I were at Social Media Marketing World, develop a way to either sign on to something or sign off something. So I've got my sign off, which is the more you expect from yourself, the more you will excel. That finishes all of my personal brand content. Every single piece of it is finished with that one line. So you don't have to, if you're working in a corporate environment, personality is not always about kind of breaking the rules that they put in place. You know, their corporate guidelines are there for a reason. Yeah, often they're stuffy and a little bit crazy, but you can get around them by just building this formula out. And you almost craft a personality within the guidelines of your corporate environment. So that's what I'd suggest. That's coming, like I said, that's coming out next Tuesday. I'll go into it in a bit more depth. But there's so much that you can do without breaching those barriers of corporate, if you like.
Okay. And for everyone, I will put the link in a comment box so you can go check out the 7-Minute Mentor. I actually binge on this every morning when I go for my morning walks before I come onto the live stream. So I love what you're talking about. So everyone is like really geeking out. And so here's some other things about Mark's personality that I've had to learn. So I connected with you over Twitter a couple of years ago. But what really got me interested was you were talking about comic books, and I just kind of shared my love of Teen Titans, and we've bonded over that. That's been amazing. But you got to get your personality out there. And so Joseph is asking, is that Lion-O in the background?
It is Lion-O, although it's a version 2 toy. It's not the original one.
Okay.
I used to have the version 1 like when I was a kid. That'd be worth some serious mullah. But yeah, it's Lion-O. We've got Jack Bauer in the corner, and the Back to the Future 2 DeLorean. Is it 2 DeLorean? Yeah, it is. It's got Fusion on it.
So Mark is a grown man with toys. That's so much
big
fun.
time.
Yeah.
What else? Look at this. Look at this.
What do you got? Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
Huh? Oh, Super Mario.
I hated that game because I could never win it.
Really?
Yeah. I hate that game.
Next time I see you at FinCon, I'm going to bring my Nintendo Switch and we can play it.
No, I'm boycotting. I've been boycotting since middle school, so I'm not playing it. So I don't have you for much long, so I want to cover a couple other things. So we've been talking about speaking gigs, and I know that you started speaking a few years ago, and you were literally like almost everywhere. So I want to talk about how you've incorporated getting out there, looking for speaking gigs, or being found for speaking gigs, and also using your podcast at the same time with that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So 2017, I had a very conscious year of trying to be everywhere, and it worked because everyone was like, how the hell are you everywhere? I've done a lot less of it this year. I've maybe spoke 7 or 8 times this year, and I'm speaking again at FinCon.
I mean, but your 7 or 8 are like mega 7 or 8, not like my baby 7 or 8.
No, they're all right ones, they're decent ones. And this year I've done the same conferences, and next year I'll probably do a little less. Just to focus on building the biz out. But so the way that I used my podcast for that was really it was like an arsenal of content. There was no way that anyone could dispute my knowledge, because I was like, well, there are 600 episodes of content here that prove that I know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And it got me. What happened with that was that those people that I wanted to speak with, so people like JLD or Ducker or whatever, I ended up speaking at Ducker's inaugural Youpreneur Summit event, which is like, there was 8 speakers, and Ducker is very, very selective. And I was one of the top people. There was myself, there was John Jantz, there was Jan Murray, Cole Gray, but then there was Pat Flynn, there was John Lee Dumas, Amy Schmittauer, so we had a really good range of speakers. Mike Morrison was there. And do you know what the secret was? You'll recognize this from a lot of the stuff that I say, is that I never work up to stuff. Like, I'm never like, well, I'll start at the bottom and work up. I'm like, screw this. I'm going to go in at the top and then see where I land. So like, I applied to whatever podcast movement, got it. FinCon, got that one. Whatever Youpreneur Summit, all these places, Traffic and Conversion, all these places. And I just thought, well, I've got the knowledge.
It's like go big or go home. It's like the state of Texas. Like,
exactly.
Go big.
Just go big. And it was, the podcast just backed that up, because I was able to say and answer questions. I was able to articulate my message. Like, I could very confidently now, if you said there's 45 minutes, we need to talk on content marketing or SaaS or startups or podcasting or branding or design, go and do it. I would be able to do it without any prep. And it's because I've done 600 episodes of a podcast. That's why I can do it, because I've spoken about these things so much and know them so in depth. And I wouldn't have done any of that without a podcast.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's really cool.
It's great leverage. It really is.
So, and all this week, we've been talking about how to launch, leverage, and land speaking gigs with your podcast. So yesterday, we talked about being consistent, because you're going to have to do it. And that's a really hard one. And for all of you who are watching or who are listening to this podcast, a lot of you didn't know I was part of a mastermind that Mark was running, and we had some coaching sessions, and he actually pushed me to go bigger. Now, of course, I was fighting it a little bit, but there is something about just going big, or just, because staying small really doesn't get you anywhere. And so that's why I've been really encouraging everyone to play a different game with your podcast, just to land more speaking gigs and to open up more doors. So I know we don't have a whole lot of time. Delshawn says, hey.
Hey, Delshawn.
Yeah. We met her. You met her at FinCon last year, so she's another money nerd. Nikki is saying she loves all the money, all the nerd stuff, so that is great. And Heather has an original Optimus Prime. Hashtag no shame. All right.
No way.
Yes. So Heather, okay. That's going to be so much fun. So we don't have much time. So why should we consider using podcast websites to launch our podcast, to get our podcast in the hands of more speaking coordinators? Why should we use you?
That is a damn good question.
I know, isn't it?
Awesome. It is a very good question. So, like I said, podcast websites is one product that we've got. You know, the Podcast Success Academy, that's all free. PodcastSuccessAcademy.com. Anyone can join that. Go and get signed up. We've got another couple of products coming out. We've got this Productivity, which I wildly teased at Podcast Movement and still won't tell anyone what it is.
I know. You haven't even told me.
That's going to be a game changer, I can tell you. And then we've got another couple of things coming out. But in my opinion, the reason that we started this thing is that, you can build your own website. Of course you can. That's cool. Go and do it. We're not after kind of taking just your time and your effort and your money if you can do that. But if you can't do that, or if you just don't have the time to do that, we set podcast websites up to bring all the moving parts together. So we bring all the media hosting, the download stats, all the 24/7 support, the design tools, the drag and drop interface, the landing pages. We bring the podcast, literally everything, all the players, everything you need into one place. So you're not managing moving parts. And the real kind of key difference is, and we're just launching, if someone becomes a member tomorrow, they will get a brand new personalized launch process, which we're launching tomorrow morning. And the reason that I'm saying that is that there's a difference between a podcaster and what we try to work with. And podcasters generally, there's so many of them. When I started in the industry, there was about 165,000 podcasts. Now there are 500,000 podcasts.
Wow.
Next year, there'll be 750,000, then 1.2 million the year after. That's what Edison is saying. And the difference is that our goal is to build audio influencers. It's not to build podcasters, but you can podcast with your phone. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's to build audio influencers, people whose audience will do what they ask them to do what they want them to do, where you build the trust, and then you can leverage that for speaking gigs, and you become the influencer in your niche, the influencer. That's where we work. And that's why podcast websites, I think, is doing well at what it does, because everything's very personal, and it's not about just being a podcaster. It's about being that audio influencer. So, I mean, there's so many ways to launch a podcast. We are one of them. So it's just about finding the right option for you, really.
All right, cool. I like that. And Twyla is asking for your new thing that you're starting tomorrow. Can she wait until Monday after she talks to James, or does she need to launch tomorrow?
No, not at all. So we're just, so Twyla, that's a great question. What I would do with that one. So first of all, drop James an email, James, James, James at podcastwebsites.com. Tell him that you've seen me on this webinar, or is it a Facebook Live, isn't it, Phylecia?
Yeah, ask the budgetologist.
Ask the budgetologist. I should have said that. I forgot the medium. I was like, is this a webinar?
We're just hanging out. That's all.
But
uh-oh, we seem to have frozen just a little bit. Are you there, Mark?
Oh, are we there?
Yeah, you're here. You froze just a second. So
sorry, guys. Twyla, email James, James at podcastwebsites.com. Tell James that you obviously know Phylecia, and we'll make sure that you get the discount that Phylecia can bring, just through listening to Ask the Budgetologist. Mm-hmm. So that's a key thing to do. You don't have to worry about that today. Drop him an email when you get a chance. Let him know you see me on this, and we'll make sure you get that discount applied as well. And we can chat on Monday, speak to James, and we can pick it up from there.
That is so cool. And so for all of you, if you're on my list, if you go to keepupwithmrsjones.com/podcast week, you get a special little code that'll help you with your membership for life with podcast websites. So hopefully it still works. But yes, if you're on my list, you will get that, and hopefully it'll, help you, budget. And so we can budget in how to keep podcast websites in your life for the rest of your life, because I need you to get out there and get more speaking gigs so that I can help you budget and so you can make some money. And One, I want to thank you so very much, Mark, for being here, because I know we're about to sign off and you got to go do some work. So thank you so very much. I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you too. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And thank you to everyone that's come online and spent the morning with us.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So this is probably one of my shorter shows. I usually go a little bit longer. So everyone, we're going to sign off now. Thank you so very much. I will be in the comments so that I can kind of engage with everyone. So if you have any questions, I want to help you with anything. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how I take how I take this live stream and turn it into a podcast. So make sure you show up tomorrow morning. Hope you have an amazing day. If you need me, you know where to find me. So take care and happy budgeting. Bye.
Bye.